Hello and welcome. Everyone, I'm Emma, and with me is Max. Today, we are starting something really useful for all of you: how to master English for job interviews. Whether you're learning English at an intermediate or elementary level, we're going to break everything down for you step by step. Right, Max?
That's right, Emma. Job interviews can be stressful, especially in a language that you're still learning. But don't worry, we're here to make it easier for you. We'll cover how to talk about your skills, your experience, and give you tips to sound confident, even if you're still learning English.
Exactly. So let's begin with something really important: how to introduce yourself. The introduction is your first chance to make a good impression. Let's imagine the interviewer says, "Tell me about yourself." What do you say? Max, what's the first thing people should focus on when answering this question?
Great question. The first thing to remember is to keep it simple. You don't have to say everything about your life. Just talk about your name, where you're from, and a little about your job or studies. For example, you can say, "My name is Maria. I'm from Brazil, and I've been working as a teacher for 3 years." Easy, right?
Yes, that's a good start. You want to give some basic information, but it's important to make it clear and not too long. Another key part of introductions is to talk about your strengths. Max, how should someone talk about their strengths in a job interview?
Well, when you're talking about your strengths, it's important to be specific. For example, instead of saying, "I am a good worker," you can say, "I am very organized and I am good at managing time." It's a bit more detailed and shows you really know what you're good at.
Yes, and remember, you don't have to use very difficult words. Simple sentences work best. Let's say you want to talk about being a team player. You could say, "I enjoy working with others, and I'm good at helping my team reach goals." That shows your strength, but in a way that's easy to understand.
And one thing to keep in mind is to practice these answers before your interview. You don't want to sound like you're reading from a book. It should sound natural, like you're just talking about yourself with a friend. Practicing will help you feel more relaxed, even if you're a little nervous.
That's a great point, Max. Practice makes you feel more confident, and confidence is key in an interview. Now, let's move on to another question that's common in job interviews. Why do you want this job? This question can be tricky, but it's a good chance to show the interviewer why you're excited to work for their company.
Yeah, this is a question where you really want to show your interest in the company or the job. You can say something like, "I want this job because I'm interested in customer service and I know your company is great at it." Or, "I've always wanted to work for a company that values teamwork and I think this job is a perfect fit for me."
Yes, and notice how Max didn't just say, "I want a job, I need money." He gave a specific reason. It's about showing that you've thought about the company and the role. Even if your English isn't perfect, showing that you're really interested in the job can make a big difference.
Absolutely, Emma. And one more thing when you're talking about why you want the job, don't be afraid to show your passion. Employers like to hire people who are excited to work. For example, "I love working with people, and I'm really excited to learn more about customer service in your company."
That's great advice. Now, let's talk a little about what happens when you don't understand a question in the interview. This can happen, and it's okay. If the interviewer asks you something and you're not sure what they mean, you can always ask them to repeat or explain the question. For example, you can say, "I'm sorry, could you please repeat that?" Or could you explain that in a different way?
Yes, and don't worry about it. It's better to ask for clarification than to answer a question incorrectly. The interviewer will understand that English isn't your first language, and they will appreciate that you're trying to communicate clearly.
Exactly. And here's another tip when you're nervous. It's easy to speak too quickly. Try to slow down a little. This will give you time to think, and it will make it easier for the interviewer to understand you.
Good point, Emma. Speaking slowly not only helps you think, but it also shows that you're confident. If you rush, you might make mistakes or sound unsure, and we want you to sound as confident as possible.
Yes, confidence is key, and speaking of confidence, body language is another important part of the interview. Even though we're talking about language skills, the way you sit, smile, and make eye contact can also make a big difference. Max, can you tell us a little more about that?
Sure. When you're in a job interview, you want to sit up straight, look at the interviewer, and smile. You don't need to stare, but making eye contact shows that you're engaged and paying attention. A smile makes you seem friendly and approachable. Even if you're nervous, these little things can help you appear more confident.
And don't forget your hands. It's okay to use your hands a little when you speak, but try not to fidget or move them too much. It can be distracting. Keep your hands relaxed on your lap or the table, and use them naturally when you need to.
Exactly. A calm and relaxed posture shows the interviewer that you're comfortable, even if you feel a bit nervous. It's normal to be nervous, but with these tips, you'll be able to handle it like a pro.
All right, that was a lot of great information. We've covered introductions, talking about your strengths, and how to show interest in the job. Plus, we talked about body language and how to ask for clarification if you don't understand something. These are all key elements for doing well in a job interview, especially if you're learning English.
Yes, we've touched on some really important points. There's still more to discuss about answering questions and how to end the interview on a strong note, but we'll get into that next.
Exactly, keep practicing, and remember, you can do this. Job interviews in English are a challenge, but with the right preparation, you can feel confident and ready.
All right, let's continue. We've talked about introductions and showing your strengths. Now, let's move on to a really important part of the interview, answering questions about your skills and experience. This is where you can really show why you're right for the job. Emma, how should someone get ready for these questions?
Good question, Max. The best way to prepare is by thinking about your past jobs or experiences. Even if you don't have a lot of work experience, you can talk about other things you've done, like volunteering or school projects. What do you think, Max?
Exactly. It's not just about paid jobs. If you've helped in a community, worked on a team project, or even managed a personal project, these all count as experience. And when you talk about them, you want to be clear and specific.
Yes, being specific is key. For example, instead of just saying, "I worked in a store," you could say, "I helped customers find products, managed the cash register, and kept the store organized." That gives the interviewer a better idea of what you actually did.
That's right. You want to paint a picture for the interviewer. You want them to imagine you in the job, doing the tasks well. One trick that helps is to think about what the job you're applying for needs and connect it to what you've done before. How about an example, Emma?
Sure, let's say you're applying for a job in customer service. Maybe you've worked as a waiter in a restaurant. You can say, "I'm used to helping customers quickly and making sure they have a good experience." It shows you have skills that are useful for the new job, even if the work was a little different.
Exactly. And you can also talk about how you improved in your past jobs. For example, at first, I found it hard to manage many tasks at once, but after some time, I became really good at it. This shows that you learn and grow on the job.
Yes, that's a great point, Max. Interviewers like to see that you can learn new things and improve. Even if you don't have all the skills yet, showing that you're willing to learn is really important. Now, Max, what should someone do if they don't have any work experience yet?
Good question, Emma. If you don't have work experience, you can talk about other things that show your skills. Maybe you worked on a group project at school, helped plan an event, or took care of a younger sibling. All of these things show responsibility, teamwork, or leadership.
That's right. Skills like communication, organization, and problem solving can come from many different experiences. The key is to explain how those experiences have prepared you for the job you're applying for. Max, what's another common question interviewers ask?
Another common one is, what are your weaknesses? This can be a tricky question because you don't want to make yourself look bad, but you also don't want to say, I don't have any weaknesses. So, how can someone answer this well?
Yes, that's a tough one. One good way to answer is to talk about something you're working to improve. For example, you could say, I sometimes take on too many tasks at once, but I'm learning to focus on what's most important first. This shows that you know your weakness, but you're also working to get better.
Exactly. It's all about being honest, but also showing that you're trying to improve. You could also say, I used to be nervous speaking in front of people, but I've been practicing and now I feel much more confident. This turns your weakness into something positive.
Yes, and when you talk about your weaknesses, remember to stay positive. You want to show that you're always learning and growing. Now, Max, another question interviewers often ask is about teamwork. How should someone answer if they're asked about working in a team?
Teamwork is super important in many jobs. If you've worked in a team before, you can talk about how you helped the group succeed.
That's a good answer. It shows that you're not only a team player, but also someone who can step up when there are challenges. You can also talk about how you communicate with your team. Saying things like, I always listen to my teammates' ideas, or I'm good at helping the team stay organized is helpful.
Yes, because communication is key in teamwork. You want to show that you can listen, share ideas, and support others. But what if someone hasn't worked in a team before? What should they say, Emma?
If you don't have direct experience, think about other times when you worked with people. Maybe you worked on a school project or helped organize something in your community. You can say, I haven't worked in a team at a job yet, but I've worked with classmates to finish projects, and I'm good at making sure everyone is on the same page.
That's a good way to show you have potential, even if you don't have the experience yet. Now, let's talk about a question many people find difficult. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? It can be hard to answer this if you're not sure about the future. Emma, how would you approach it?
That's a great point, Max. When interviewers ask this, they don't expect you to know exactly where you'll be. They just want to see that you have goals. You could say something like, in 5 years, I hope to be more experienced in this field and take on more responsibility at work. This shows you're thinking about growth.
Yes, and it's a good way to show that you're serious about building a career. Even if you're not sure exactly where you want to be, you can focus on learning new skills or growing in the job. You could say, I hope to learn more and develop my skills to become a leader in my role.
Exactly. It's all about showing that you're motivated and ready to keep improving. Even if your English isn't perfect, showing that you have a plan for the future can make a big difference. Another thing to think about is how you finish the interview. Max, what's a good way to end on a strong note?
At the end of the interview, many interviewers ask, do you have any questions for us? It's always a good idea to ask something. This shows that you're interested in the job. You could ask, what does a typical day look like in this role? Or what are the most important qualities for someone in this position?
Yes, asking questions shows that you're engaged and that you really care about the job. You can also ask about the company's goals or what the team is like. For example, can you tell me more about the team I would be working with? Or what are the company's main goals for the next year?
Those are great examples, Emma. It also gives you a chance to see if the job is a good fit for you. Remember, interviews are a two-way conversation. You're learning about the company, just like they're learning about you.
That's such an important point, Max. The interview isn't just about showing that you're right for the job, it's also about making sure the job is right for you. Asking questions at the end helps you learn more and shows that you're serious.
Exactly. And one more thing to remember after the interview, it's a good idea to thank the interviewer. You can say something like, "Thank you for your time. I really enjoyed learning more about the position and your company. It leaves a positive impression."
Yes, a simple thank you goes a long way. It shows that you're polite and professional. Plus, it's another chance to remind them that you're excited about the job. So remember, always end with a smile and a thank you.
That's right. And speaking of ending, we've covered a lot today talking about your experience, answering tough questions, and how to finish the interview. All of these things will help you stand out, even if English isn't your first language.
Yes, you've got this. Just keep practicing. And remember, the more you prepare, the more confident you'll feel in your interview. All right, everyone, we're ready to dive into the last part of our discussion on how to master English for job interviews. We've covered introductions, how to talk about your strengths, and even some tricky questions about weaknesses and teamwork. But there's still a lot more to go over. Let's start with something that's often overlooked but super important: how to talk about your achievements. Max, what's a good way to talk about what you've accomplished?
Good point, Emma. Talking about your achievements in a job interview is a great way to show that you're capable. But the key is to focus on what you did and how it helped. For example, you could say, I helped increase sales by 20% by creating a better customer experience. It's short, but shows both the action you took and the result.
Yes, that's exactly it. It's important to connect what you did with how it helped the company or team. And even if your achievements seem small, they're still worth mentioning. For example, you could say, I helped organize a school event that had over 100 people attend, or I completed a project ahead of schedule, which helped my team finish our work on time, Max. How can someone talk about their achievements if they're just starting out and don't have a lot of work experience yet?
That's a good question. If you're just starting out and don't have a lot of professional achievements, you can talk about personal achievements or things from school or volunteering. For example, maybe you won an award in school, completed a tough course, or learned a new skill. You can say something like, I completed a course in computer skills, and now I can use Excel to create reports and organize data. It shows that you're learning and improving.
Yes, and even if your achievements aren't directly related to the job, they still show that you're capable of learning and growing. It's all about showing that you have potential. Now, another big part of job interviews is talking about why you're a good fit for the company. This is different from just talking about your skills. Max, how can someone explain why they're a good fit?
Good question. When you're talking about being a good fit, you want to show that you understand the company's values and what they're looking for in an employee. You could say something like, I know your company values teamwork, and I love working with others to solve problems. I think my skills in communication and collaboration would fit well here. What do you think, Emma?
Yes, that's a great way to do it. It's not just about saying, I want this job, but also showing that you've thought about why you'd be a good match for the company. Another way to show you're a good fit is to talk about the company's mission. You could say something like, I know your company is focused on sustainability, and I'm really passionate about the environment. I would love to contribute to your efforts in this area. It shows that you care about the same things the company does.
Exactly. When you show that your values align with the company's, it makes you stand out as a candidate. And it's okay if your English isn't perfect. What's important is showing that you've done your research and are genuinely interested in the company. Now, another thing we should talk about is handling questions about salary. Emma, how should someone handle the salary question?
The salary question. This can be tricky, especially if English isn't your first language. First of all, it's important to be prepared for this question, but you don't have to give a number right away. You can say something like, I'm open to discussing salary based on the responsibilities of the position and my experience. This shows that you're flexible. Max, what do you think?
That's a great response, Emma. Another thing you can do is ask the interviewer what the salary range is for the position. For example, you could say, could you tell me more about the salary range for this role? That way, you don't have to guess and you can learn more about what they're offering.
Yes, And if they give you a number that's lower than what you were expecting, it's okay to politely ask if there's room for negotiation. You could say, I was hoping for a salary closer to X amount, given my skills and experience. Is there flexibility in the range? But it's important to stay polite and respectful. Max, what should someone do if they don't feel comfortable talking about salary in English?
If you're not comfortable talking about salary in English, it's perfectly fine to practice this before the interview. Write down what you want to say and practice it out loud so you feel more confident. You could even practice with a friend or a teacher. And remember, you don't have to answer the salary question right away. If you're unsure, you can say, I'd like to learn more about the role before discussing salary. This gives you more time to think.
Yes, practicing is key. The more you practice, the more comfortable you'll feel. Now, let's move on to another important part of the interview: how to handle tough or unexpected questions. Sometimes, interviewers will ask questions that you didn't prepare for. Max, what should someone do if they get a question they weren't expecting?
Good question, Emma. If you get a question that surprises you, the first thing to remember is to stay calm. You don't have to answer right away. Take a moment to think about your answer. You can even say, that's a great question. Let me think about it for a moment. This gives you time to organize your thoughts.
Yes, that's great advice. It's okay to take a moment to think. And if you really don't know the answer, it's better to be honest. You can say something like, I don't have experience with that yet, but I'm eager to learn. This shows that you're honest and willing to learn new things.
Exactly. It's okay not to know everything, especially if you're still learning English or are new to the job market. What's important is showing that you have a positive attitude and are open to learning. Another common tough question is, why did you leave your last job? How should someone answer that, Emma?
That's another tricky one. If you left your last job for a good reason, like moving to a new city or wanting a new challenge, you can say that. For example, I moved to a new city and I'm excited to find new opportunities here. If you left because of a problem, try to stay positive. You could say, I'm looking for a job that better matches my skills and career goals.
Yes, staying positive is key. You don't want to speak badly about your old job or your old boss. Even if it was a difficult situation, try to focus on the future and what you're looking for in your next job. And if you were let go or laid off, you can simply say, the company had to make some changes, but I learned a lot and I'm excited about new opportunities.
That's a great way to handle it, Max. It's all about focusing on the positive and showing that you're ready for what's next. Now, one more thing we should talk about is how to close the interview. Max, what's a good way to end the conversation on a strong note?
Great question, Emma. At the end of the interview, it's important to thank the interviewer for their time. You can say something like, "Thank you so much for taking the time to meet with me today. I'm really excited about the opportunity to work with your company. This leaves a positive impression."
Yes, and don't forget to smile. A friendly and confident goodbye can make a big difference. You can also ask about the next steps in the process, like, what are the next steps in the hiring process? Or when can I expect to hear back from you? This shows that you're interested in moving forward.
Exactly. Asking about the next step shows that you're serious about the job and excited to hear from them. And one final tip after the interview, it's a good idea to send a follow-up email thanking the interviewer again. This small gesture can really help you stand out.
Yes, a quick thank you email shows that you're professional and thoughtful. It can be as simple as saying, "Thank you for the opportunity to interview for the position. I really enjoyed our conversation and look forward to hearing from you soon." It's a great way to keep your name in their mind after the interview.
Absolutely, Emma. That follow-up email can make a big difference. And with that, we've covered everything from preparing for the interview to answering tough questions and finishing strong. I hope all of you feel a lot more prepared for your next interview in English.
Yes, we know interviews can be stressful, especially in a new language, but with practice, you can feel confident and ready. Remember, it's okay if your English isn't perfect. What's important is showing that you're motivated, prepared, and eager to learn.
That's right. Keep practicing, keep improving, and don't be afraid to make mistakes. Every interview is a chance to learn and get better.
And with that, we want to thank you all for joining us for this podcast series on mastering English for job interviews. We hope you found it helpful and feel more confident about your upcoming interviews.
Yes, thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this podcast, please make sure to subscribe to our channel and share it with your friends and family. We'd love to hear about your interview experiences, so feel free to leave a comment or reach out to us.
Good luck with your job interviews, everyone. You've got this. We'll see you next time.
Goodbye, and thanks again for listening.
Goodbye.